Hi, it's Nikki. Thank you for coming to take a look at this painting video. Today I'm going to be painting an Everblaze Comet. I've had this idea of a junky Stormcast list in my head for about a year where I just toss comets a lot with using a Seraphon ally to dispel it every round. And so when I toss it at my opponent's face, I want to make sure that it looks nice while they do that. The way they can say, nice looking comet, ow. Okay, so this is going to be the object that we're working with. Let's see, I'm going to probably do the base part here in a green. I'm going to do the earth tracking here in a brown. I'm going to make this a purple. I'm going to do the smoke in kind of a blue to a white. And we'll see how well that goes. So first thing at least, I can probably actually, I think we can still take these off. Let's go ahead, let's work with the, honestly, let's work with the green right now. So the green I'm going to start with, I'm actually doing a lot of contrast paints with this. I'm going to be doing Creed Camo using an STC base medium brush. So take it out of the pot, load it up on my brush, and let's start coloring this grass here. And I'm not too worried about overdoing this because I'm going to be dry brushing it a little bit later. So use as much as you want. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. Probably run it into the brown until the earth groove as well. Not too much into it, but the brown's going to hide that pretty good, so I'm not too worried about it. Here. For the longest time, since just before lockdown started happening, I had a very junky Stormcast list in my mind. And this was taken from the Stormcast forums over on TGA, and it was what they called it Starcast. And so it was just all about tossing out mortal wounds through magic and everything, because at this point, of course, Stormcast weren't exactly really a very good melee-centered army. If you wanted them for tournaments, you were bringing Shootcast. And this, at least, I felt, was a bit narratively more what was in their wheelhouse. I mean, one of the problems for them is that there was never just great sources of mortal wounds for them, and their allegiance abilities were always lacking in something. That was, honestly, they were very frustrating to work with. People thought Kharadron Overlords were frustrating to make a list with, and honestly, they turned out okay with their 2.0 book, but certainly when they were initially released, I was having flashbacks to working with Stormcast lists and the restrictions you had to work with in order to make a list with them. It just, other armies did not have to jump through hoops, or were lacking hoops that the Stormcast were lacking. And I get it. They were the first new book out for a new edition, for 2nd edition, along with Nighthaunt. And so you didn't want to come out the gate with something overpowered for the entire edition's existence. You didn't want that. Still, though, I think a lot of the design choices that went into the Stormcast book, they were definitely looked at as things that should not be reproducible with future books after them. But while the book is still legal right now, even though I'm not really taking this to tournaments, but why am I going to want to use book 2, second edition's book, once when third edition's book comes out? I have this idea for a list. It is Seraphon Ally, get a Slan, and start casting this Everblaze Comet, and keep the Slan around to dispel it. Thankfully, with third edition's Arcane Tome, I can make anything now a wizard, so I can make a high defense, survivable Stormcast wizard with something big and dumb like, I don't know, a Star Drake. Or probably once when one of the new dragons come out, those, and start casting the Comet, have the Slan dispel the Comet, and, you know, repeat. And the entire point, too, of Starcast was just that everything I noticed was named after kind of like comets or meteors or rains of stars, that kind of thing. And that was really appealing to me. So I was looking at everything that existed that had an ability that had a euphemism for comets in it. And I actually came across the Celestial Hurricanum. So I was doing one of those last year. And because I was like, okay, cool, I'll run Cities of Sigmar. I never realized Seraphon were not Cities allies, which blew my mind. They are Stormcast allies, though. I was so happy when Broken Realms Morathi came out and they invented Stormkeeps. Then it was like, oh my god, here's my chance. I can run a Hurricanum, I can run a Slan, I can do all the meteors, and I can be able to get away with it. So let's see, here's the green base so far. It's going to be it for the green right now. Wash out my brush. I'm going to go with Sigor Brown for the earth part now. Sticking with the contrast paints. Sticking with the medium brush. And just go to town on this, the impact crater here. And I'm going to dry brush this, some lighter colors to bring out more of the crater details. I could certainly have a larger brush for this part. I don't think it's particularly too much needed. It's got a lot of detail in it that is going to help the contrast really enhance bringing that out. This has honestly been the only endless spell I've ever actually played with in prior games before. When they first came out, I picked them up. And at the time, I never really cared for the Deus Arcanum. And then there was the Hurricane of Hammers. And honestly, I didn't care for the Hurricane of Hammers either. The Comet was just my thing. And I get that a lot. Like, I find that when I play, I really enjoy playing Alpha Strikes and then just trying to hopefully survive the rest of the game as best as possible. Well, maybe enjoy is not the right word. It tends to be how I like to play. But I guess the thing is that what's been so frustrating to me about Sigmar that I'm still trying to get used to it never seemed like it had as many combos for abilities like you could see in something like Magic or something like that. There was not a couple of things I could chain together for some interesting, unique, but if not dumb actions. And so, because of that, it was always kind of difficult for me to figure out things I could do. Vanguard Wing, Stormcast, when they had Vanguard Wing, I loved it. That was about one of the best dumb combo interactions I could get from a couple of things. Something like Vanguard Wing, though, just doesn't exist right now for Stormcast. So, I have the base of my Comet now sitting there drying. So let's go ahead, let's talk about the actual Comet itself. I'm going to be doing the ball part of it in Leviathan Blue. And then I think I'm going to be doing the smoke part of it in blues like Lothern Blue and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and let's start with the Leviathan part about this, because once I get done with the Leviathan, I'm going to be able to start dry brushing the base. The one thing I really don't like sometimes about the contrast paints is how they describe them in certain colors when they're really not. Like Leviathan Blue, this is not a blue, this is a purple. This is such a purple. It's a very deep purple, I find. But you know what? I also recognize that I'm a little bit colorblind. So maybe it is a blue. I'll leave myself open to that interpretation. But I think it's a purple. And this is going to be good for a nice big purple rock. Again, there's so much detail on this, though. It's going to really let contrast paints do so much work on them. Because that's the thing about contrast, right? They don't like flat areas, but if you can work them in with some very well textured parts, that's where they really shine. Let's see, I'm going to probably hold this one like this here. That's fine. I've got a couple of things I think I'm going to be doing some painting for in the near future. I picked up a Sigvald a while back, and I think I'm going to do that one. I don't know if I want to do the video of the Sigvald, because I don't want to be the kind of person that thinks that actually, like, I feel I have the talent to do justice to such a beautiful model like that. But if there's ever anything as Slaaneshi as having that kind of a pride, you know. Let's see, get some more paint. And a lot of these, too, for the end of them, it's just going to be a lot of dry brushing. I think that's going to work very well with these as well. So I'm going to dry brush all the purples before I do the blue. The blue is going to be some actual kind of brush work a little bit. I need a lot more control for doing the blue smoke part of it. But before I get there, I can do the rest of this. Get a lot of mileage out of a little bit of paint sometimes with this. Sometimes. Other times I just want to slather it on. And honestly, having that kind of inconsistency of paint on something like this is probably to its advantage. Makes it look a little bit more natural. let's say I get this one done, and then we come on back. And here we are with the meteor, at least the Leviathan purple part, well, the Leviathan blue part of it, color. We're going to do this one in a dry brush of, I think, Gene Stealer purple, and that's going to come up, though, after I give this chance to dry a bit. Right now, though, we have the base mostly dry. Now we can do actually a dry brush here of Elysian green on the grass, and then I'm going to be doing a dry brush of Baylor brown and Baneblade brown for the landing spot. I happen to have at least a good old trusty large dry brush here. And we're going to go start with the green part, the Elysian green. I actually have a normal small pot of this instead of my favored air paints, because honestly these paints are going to be better on a dry brush than air paints are going to be. That's a fact. Just getting some paint off my dry brush before I start wisping it over, and here we go. You can see this is starting to pull out a little bit more of the detail here of the earth, the grassy part of the earth. Let's see. I'm not too worried about it in terms of, oh no, it's not perfect. It's not meant to be perfect, right? This is just some background for what the object of attention's really supposed to be. Get a circular motion here for this one. Okay, this isn't actually too bad here. I'd probably go a little bit lighter. I think I have an Ogren camo around here that I can go up with this one. And if not the Ogren, I can use, let's see, I have a Carrick stone up here. Averland Sunset, that would be certainly interesting. Ah, here we go. Ogren camo. Let's see, I got it in here. Put it on my brush. And the idea is, of course, you want to get a paper, a tissue paper, and you want to wipe the brush on the tissue paper until you have just a little bit of color left, so that way it's just hanging around on the bristles of the brush. And now we do the dry brush. Little bit of light flicking. I'm going to be sticking towards the top edge. That's going to help bring out a little bit more of the top edge. And you can see that detail coming out there. Alright, I think that's definitely a craggy, grassy area done. Now let's talk about doing the dug in dirt here. I'm not actually worried about washing my brush in between the dry brushes. A lot of these colors are fine really to mix together, as they're going to help tie everything together. I only have now my air paints left, so this is going to be a little bit harder to work with. First I'm going to go with Baylor Brown. Put it on my brush. Wipe my brush on the tissue. And it's harder with the air paints just because of how wet they already are. So the entire point, of course, of a dry brush is that you keep bits of dry paint on the bristles. And the air paint being less dry and more wet means that the dryness doesn't stick there. And you'll actually get more of an overbrush with air one, because you'll get a little bit more paint showing through. Okay, actually not bad. Like it. Alright, I'm going to do one last one. We're going to do Baneblade Brown. Hopefully a little bit lighter on that detail. Let's see, put Baneblade Brown a little bit on my brush. I'm gonna make sure I get it off on my tissue paper. Okay. And I just don't want to do light strokes of it. You can kind of see it working a little bit. There's a lot more detail kind of popping out now against it. That looks nice. That looks very nice. Let's see. Probably do more here on the edge. I can probably mix it in a bit over here. Tie them a bit more together. Okay. And so we got an earth here. All right. Take a look and see how this looks like on top with the meteor on top. Not bad at all. I have to do the rim color on it, but you know, other than that. All right. So let's go ahead now. Let's start talking about doing this. You know, if I was doing something and I wanted to make something look like a petrified brain, I could use this meteor for that pretty easily. It looks like a brain. Make it some kind of a weird Slaneshi thing, right? All right, so I'm going to be still sticking with the large dry brush, just making sure I get a lot more of the paint off. And the reason why I'm doing this too is that you don't want to get your bristles wet on a dry brush and then you're going to be waiting a long time for that brush to dry, because the idea is that the bristles definitely should not be wet. So I'm going to be using Gene Sealer Purple. I'm actually going to be okay with this turning into an overbrush more than some of the other stuff, because it's going to really help bring out a lot of details in it, I think. And if I really want to, I can do a lighter dry brush of, say, like Cacophony Purple, and that'll work just fine. Plus, honestly, you know, a couple of little earth tones on this will work for it as well. Anyway, let's now start dry brushing our Space Brain Comet. I think I'm definitely going to do the Cacophony on this one. Give a highlight color with a little bit more contrast to everything. And you can see right here, I got a little bit more of an overbrush on this part of it than some of the others. That was that first initial swipe. And that's what I'm kind of talking about sometimes with these air paints like this. They do that. Let's see. There we go. And I got some detail coming out here on this one. Go over on this side now. Try to get the details popping here. And like I said, I'll probably go and do a cacophony purple after this for some really, really highlights. Let's see, make sure I get the middle of this. They were looking good on this side. This side, not so much. But let me go get my cacophony purple now, and it's not going to be that much of an interlude. Let's see. It's definitely more of like a pink purple than a straight up purple. But this I think is going to work really well. I just got to make sure I really get a lot of the paint off the brush on the tissue paper on this time. I can't really leave a lot of the paint left on the tissue, or else it's going to, I think, wreck a lot of what I have going on with this bottle already. I need to be lighter on my dry brush too with it. I don't want to get the whole thing. I don't need to get the whole thing. I just want to get the best detail. So let's see. Here we go. That's making some details pop. Down here in the middle. Perfect. All right, over here. Big test. I think that's working. Make sure I get the last of this detail done here. All right. I got some good look on that one. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about this smoke effect here on this. And for that, I'm going to start with Calgar Blue. And then I'm going to move up to Lothern Blue on a dry brush. And then probably Ulthuan Gray towards on the tops here with this. So let's see. I'm going to get my medium base brush. I got Calgar Blue Air Paint. Shake that up. Get it on my brush. This is going to be one of those things where I'm going to need multiple coats on this one. And that's fine. The air paints are super thin. They're already thinned down, so you don't have to thin them with water. But because of that thinness, you're going to need to do 2 thin coats, as Duncan would say. Alright, so here's what it's looking like with the Calgar Blue. I'll be right back. So we have the flames now painted Calgar Blue. Lothern is going to be one of the dry brush highlights, but we can see that looks pretty good. But we can make it a little bit better with some shade. I got some Drakenhof Nightshade to go with this. So I'm going to take my medium base brush, load it up with the shade, and the shade's going to help kind of blend in the rest of the shape with the comet. And here we go, just going all the way down with it here. Really give some definition to this. I'm not too worried about the contrasting of the colors here, because with the dry brush of the Lothern, that's going to tie a lot of that together at the end. Let's see. There. Okay. So I'm going to finish this off, and when we come back, we'll start dry brushing at Lothern. Alright, so here we have the Calgar Blue shaded with Drakenhof Nightshade. We can see a little bit of pooling and things like that. I'm not too worried about that, only because I think the dry brushing of the Lothern Blue is going to do a lot more to cover that up. So let's go ahead, let's get to that. Let's see. Need to get a new piece of tissue paper. And now I'm going to get some Lothern Blue. I've got my large dry brush here for this one again. Let's see. Open, shake it. Open the pot. Get it on the brush here. Now this one can be a bit more of an overbrush, which is when you don't get all the paint off the bristles. That way it's still kind of, you can get a lot of coverage. And I'm not concerned, I'm fine with it being an overbrush on this, just because I want to kind of lighten up the whole thing with it. It'll cover up a little bit more of those areas. And just all over, I think it's going to be a little bit better for this. So here we go. Dry brushing. And yeah, we can see that blue really popping now with this. Look at that. So, keep going. And I'm fine with a little bit of weird coloration, because the idea, of course, is that this blue is meant to be kind of a ethereal smoke coming off the comet. And so it gives a bit of inconsistency, right, that smoke is going to give, where the shapes it makes and the shadows it gives aren't quite there. There's a different density, of course, to smoke and different parts of smoke that this can be able to kind of give that an ideal for. Yeah. That's looking really good right there. I want to at least dig in a little bit more here. And this is also what I mean by an overbrush here, where there was a little bit more paint left on it than you normally would have for a dry brush. And so you got a lot more color going onto it now this time. This is going to be good. All right. Last step. I'm going to do some Ulthuan Gray and get a really good white shown on this. Let's see. I maybe could go up to a Fenrisian Gray on it, and that might also work too. But I'm going to try and make this very light for the best details. So here it is on my brush. putting it on my tissue paper. This one I'm making sure I'm getting it all off. I don't want a lot of Ulthuan left on it. Okay, let's see how well this works. So starting here at the tips. There we go. It looks good. Look at that detail pop. Yeah, that looks really nice. Really nice. Okay, over there, here. Let's get it on this part now. This looks really good. I like this. Alright, so I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to do another of Ulthuan. This time I'm going to try and make it a little bit more of an overbrush for specifically the very tips of it. Try and make it look like as if it's the blue evaporating into a white. Let's see how well I can pull this one off. So, I'm going to start at the tips. There we go. There we go. That looks good. Alright, same thing goes here. White, and just bring it a bit down. That looks nice. That looks real nice. Alright, over here again. Should I get it white? White, bring it down. Be a little bit lighter. But make it its whitest at the peaks. Bring it a bit down. There we go. Alright, let's see, do a little bit of a light one here. I think this will look nice. Same thing, a little bit of a light one here, just a light touch. Okay. Let's put it on its base here. And let's see how this looks. And here we go. My Everblaze Comet. Be smashing into you real soon.